Hi, my name is Mia Moore, and I am a staff scientist with the Fred Hutch. I do mathematical modeling of HIV prevention trials. I use cohort modeling specifically to simulate trial incidence as well as effectiveness of HIV prevention products. Hi, my name is Mia Moore, and I'm going to tell you about a model-based methodology for predicting counterfactual incidence in HIV prevention trials. As you've already heard throughout this session and the prior one, counterfactual estimates of placebo incidence will become increasingly important for evaluating the effectiveness of new HIV interventions. Here we demonstrate the use of a mathematical model for predicting HIV incidence in populations of young women in sub-Saharan Africa. The prediction relies on two key pieces of information: baseline HIV risk profiles measured using the Voice Risk Survey, and information about the HIV prevalence, as well as rates of viral load suppression in the local male population. We applied this methodology to HPTN-082, which evaluated interventions for improving adherence to pre-exposure prophylaxis, PrEP, in young African women. This study was a prime target for such an analysis, as all study participants were offered PrEP, with 95% accepting. Additionally, the study targeted women with a voice risk score of 5 or more, making the trial cohort at greater risk for HIV infection than the general population. Finally, the effectiveness of oral PrEP has not been demonstrated in this population in a randomized controlled trial. The model inputs, shown in orange, are the prevalences of the individual components of the voice risk score, which I will refer to as voice risk factors, and the characteristics of the local adult male population. These two sets of inputs are combined to predict HIV risk behaviors in the trial participants, which can then be used to mechanistically simulate HIV incidence over 1 year of follow-up. The voice risk score and its component risk factors was developed using data from the VOICE trial and validated using the control arms of two additional HIV prevention trials, HPTN-035 and FemPrep. All three of these trials enrolled young women in sub-Saharan Africa. These identified risk factors and their associated odds ratios of infection are listed below. They are not living with a main partner, not receiving financial support from a main partner who potentially has other partners, a treatable STI at enrollment, any alcohol consumption within the past 3 months, and being age 25 or less at enrollment. Although each of the voice risk factors was correlated with HIV incidence, it is not obvious mechanistically how this risk is mediated. Using the baseline participant surveys from HPTN-082, as well as other literature sources, we used a generalized linear model to describe the relationship between the voice risk factors and more direct predictors of HIV risk, such as the use of condoms or partner concurrency. Some of the notable associations we found are shown in the lower right, with a blue or gray background rectangle indicating a prior range for the model coefficients determined from baseline surveys or literature sources, respectively. The green dot overlaid is the posterior estimate when we combine these prior assumptions with the correlations observed in voice. As an example, lower condom use is reported by those with an STI at enrollment. This suggests that at least some of the association between STIs at enrollment and HIV risk is mediated by reduced condom use. Our mathematical model allows for these two independent lines of evidence to be combined, refining the association between this risk factor and HIV incidence via a mechanistic model. Differences in HIV risk in space and time are implemented via the dynamics of the local adult male population, who are the potential sources of HIV infection in these women. The flowchart shows the different HIV infection and treatment statuses of male partners within our simulations. We can adjust HIV incidence, prevalence, and viral load suppression independently by altering the proportions of individuals in each category and the rates of transition between them. These adjustments are made based on individual risk factors, as well as independent estimates of the epidemic values at each location. Here are the estimates that we used for applying our methodology to voice and HPTN-082. They are compiled from UNAIDS data, as well as other national surveys, such as FEAR, to localize to a specific city. Notably, there was a significant increase in HIV treatment in the 7 years between voice and HPTN-082. This was despite switching from quantifying treatment coverage by the number of people enrolled in ART to quantifying coverage by the viral load suppression of all HIV-infected individuals. Our full model was calibrated to observed incidence in the voice trial, and we validated the model by applying it to the control arms of 4 additional studies, each enrolling African women. This included the 2 studies that we used to validate the voice risk score, HPTN-035 and FemPrep, as well as 2 additional subsequent studies, the Aspire trial and the ECHO trial. We have broken down the comparison between the observed data and our model by study and country. The left column is the observed placebo incidence and associated 95% confidence interval. And the right column is the prediction from our model with a 95% credible interval. Overall, there is good agreement between our prediction and the observed incidence. When we apply our methodology to the sites in HPTN-082, we predicted a 1.7%, 4.2%, and 5.2% HIV incidence annualized in Harare, Cape Town, and Johannesburg, respectively. Our overall projected incidence of 3.7% in HPTN-082 was considerably higher than the 1.0% in the active arm, suggesting that oral PrEP was protective against HIV infection in the study cohort. As a demonstration, we also considered some alternative counterfactual scenarios. If the population had not been screened for high risk, we would have only expected a 2.0% HIV incidence. On the other hand, if we had ignored changes in the HIV epidemic, we would have expected an 11.6% HIV incidence. Therefore, adjusting for both differences in space and time, as well as the study population, is crucial for making an accurate projection. Counterfactual estimates of HIV incidence will become critical as future HIV studies will likely offer an active intervention to all participants. Here, we used a model-based approach which allowed us to combine multiple different types of extra trial data in a structured manner. This included associations between the voice risk factors and HIV incidence, as well as associations between those same factors and HIV risk behaviors. We also incorporated data on the changing nature of the epidemic across space and time. Therefore, both the participant risk profiles and the community-specific HIV epidemiology had a large impact on the incidence projection. I'd like to acknowledge the Fred Hutch and the HIV Prevention Trials Network, particularly the coordinators of HPTN-082 who supported this work, as well as my colleagues at the Associated HPTN Modeling Center. Thank you for your attention.